Cutdown day is Tuesday, so the media, they had a lot of questions of Gus Bradley, the defensive coordinator of the Colts, about how this roster is going to be structured. And Gus is a pro, so he didn't say too much about it, but he did talk about Jalen Jones quite a bit, and he talked about Shaquille Leonard. Interesting stuff from Gus Bradley.
Okay, I'll open up for questions.
What has impressed you the most about the way Jalen Jones approached training camp and just how he's gotten better throughout the preseason?
Well, I think when he came in, what we liked about him was he was a good man player. You know, played press at the line of scrimmage, did a lot of things like that. And then some of the different zone concepts, that was where the learning curve was for him. And I think that in training camp, that's where he's probably made the biggest jump, where he's gained the trust of the guys around him, some of the different things we're doing there.
What have you shown you on special teams specifically?
What's that?
What has he shown you on special teams specifically?
As a gunner, I know they like him there, and both on punt return and punt. So he does a great job with the hold-ups, and I think they just like his aggressiveness.
Got some young corners, as we know. What has been your overarching takeaway from the preseason for those guys?
Well, probably what you're saying too. They're long, right? They're long. They can run pretty well. There's going to be in our style of defense, they're going to have to hold up on the. I think we talked about that last year with Gilly. On the X receiver, they're going to take shots there, and you got to be able to hold up out there and make plays. So you saw a little bit in the preseason. Dallas made a couple plays there. So I think their length and their size and speed. So they just need to play, and get more and more reps on the field. We'll probably go through some growing pains with them, but I think we're really excited about, kind of their ability and what they bring to the table.
The shots because the single trying to take advantage of the single deep safety. You think that what that is?
Well, I think anytime 3-by-1 they kind of look and see that they like the matchups. You can play split safety, and you're cheating to the trips, and teams can read it. So it's just, I think it's a matter of ball that you're going to be one-on-one sometimes out there in the perimeter.
What have you seen about Dallas? I mean, last year at this time, he's just trying to make the roster, and he's a special teams guy primarily, and then you finally go to the corner. What have you seen as growth at the position? It's
right, because I think right away it was people were like, let's take a look at him now. And it's one of those things where the trust with the teammates, the trust with Milo as a coach, he had to build that aspect of it. So I think his athleticism, his length, his size was always there, but it was that part that, can we trust you play in and play out? And, Milo has done a great job, Mike Mitchell, and then I think like a guy like Gilly kind of took ownership of him too. So I think as it got into the season, he started to play with more confidence. He played with trust from his teammates, and it took time for that to come across.
So do you trust him?
What's that?
Do you trust him?
Now? Yeah. We definitely trust him. Yeah, he's played consistently throughout OTAs and now, so yeah, he's done a good job. And then it was good to see him. You still, I think, trust you want to keep stacking up those opportunities when the ball goes your way that you make plays. So I think each time that happens, you trust him even more.
Talk about for the pass rush with young corners. How important is it to tie in the pass rush to help out the young corners?
Well, it sure helps them. I think we're playing things tighter than we have. I think we're challenging things more. But whenever you have a rush, that the quarterback has to get it off, there's kind of that clock that ticks for him, and he's got to, get rid of it. That's what's important, I think. So, like the cliche says, they work together. But we're seeing some guys in one-on-ones, and I think that as the season goes on, we'll see that rush develop more and more.
You talk about getting reps for guys, growing pains for the young corners. I feel like Darryl Baker got some experience against Devontae Smith in the joint practices. What kind of an opportunity is that like for a guy that young?
Good. I think sometimes when you see that, it's how they respond. They went up and had a couple battles, and to see him come back and won it again and again, that's the mentality that you have to have. And I think so. When you look at plays being made, whether it's a big play for them or we make a big play, how a guy responds in those situations is important. And we try to evaluate everything, how they walk on the field, how they are with their teammates, how they handle those types of situations. So, we talk in terms of everything counts. And so to go on those joint practices against a great receiver like that was good. We saw a lot that took place.
I know that Dallas Flowers just only got limited reps throughout the preseason, but how would you compare the player he is now to the player you saw in Week 18 when he got to start against Houston?
I think he's playing with more consistency. He's always been pretty confident now. I mean, when we put him in there was no, hesitation on his part. He always felt like, shoot, it's just, why did it take so long? I should have been out here. He's kind of got that mentality. So I think just as his consistent play, and he's playing with an edge out there, I think he loves the challenge. And, sometimes guys are like, hey, put me to the field, where our guys now are like, no, it doesn't matter. Put me in the boundary, let me go one-on-one, give me my shot there. So it's, I think he's really the one that epitomizes that.
How do you feel like Nick Cross has developed this camp?
He's done very well. I'll tell you what Nick has done. He has proven to us that he has consistently played well at the strong safety spot. But what his value to us is he can play free, he can play strong, in a pinch he can play nickel. So as far as a role, he's one play away from all those three positions, where he has an opportunity to play, or at least be in those discussions to play. And I think last year he wasn't in that discussion. It was like, boy, he's, if we had an injury maybe at a spot, it was like, well, I don't know if he's quite ready. I think he's really kind of erased that part of doubt for us.
So do you foresee, starting Julian and Strong, and is Nick more of like a utility guy at those three positions?
Well, I mean, as far as talking about the rosters and stuff like that, we'll see how it all plays out. But you've seen it. Julian's played very well for us.
What would you define a successful year for this young cornerback?
Oh boy, so that's a great question. Now, make every play, get a lot of picks. But I think we challenge them just that. Everything is a growing. Keep their competitive spirit. Challenge out there in the perimeter. We know that teams are going to take some shots. We got to win a lot of the fair share of those. Compete against them, and let's see what takes place. But I think the evaluation is constant. Each week to see. And we just got to make sure that each week we see great improvement from them all.
For a lack of a better way of putting it, difference between boundary and field, they're just going to get more help if you're the field corner.
Yeah, well, it depends. Nowadays, teams are putting formation into the boundary, and so the field corner. Generally speaking, the field corner is a longer throw, right, especially in college. You have a boundary corner and a field corner. The short side of the field in college, they're going to get more shots for the field corner, and that's a long throw to throw a comeback to the field in college. It's a little bit like that in the NFL, but now teams are getting to where they're putting formation in the boundary and they're trying to expose you different ways. So, but generally speaking, yeah, the boundary corner is going to be more isolated.
How have you seen Daryl, similar to Dallas, evolve from last year to this year? And is it different when they're like just an older person, both like 25 years old?
He's got tremendous poise. That's what I'd say about DJ. Very good poise, rarely rattled, competes every play. You know what you're going to get. They might complete a pass on him. He's going to come back the next play and compete his tail out. There's just that consistency part that he plays with really, really good poise. And he's a fierce competitor out there. So he's done a really good job. I can remember we brought him in OTAs. He was sitting in with Milo and just talking about his growth that we saw through OTAs. And then he took the training camp and he's been consistent throughout, and he's taken his game another notch. So, I think just playing together and getting a feel. We saw a little bit with the defensive line, right? Like here's Sampson rushing next to Buck and Sampson rushing next to Tavon. It's different, it's a different feel. So those guys, they need to play and get a feel for how each other one operates at each position so they can, and that's just playing more and more.
Gus, this time last year, there were a lot of questions looming about Shaq and where he was in his comeback. No, he's progressing through the protocol right now, but in particular, in the last month and what he's been able to do, returning to practice, the amount of time he's been able to play, what have you learned about him as a player, both on and off the field?
You know what? I don't know. I guess I am a little emotional. Get excited, the ups and downs, but it's hard not to when you talk about him. And if you just sit back and pause and look where he was at, and then you look at all the work he put in, and then he goes through maybe a setback, and then he comes back, and then it's a little bit of a setback, and then he comes back. And just his perseverance, his grit, his determination, it is emotional. I mean, what he's gone through and how much that he has put into it to try to do everything he can to get back, because he is so important to this team. On the field, the emotion he brings, the playmaking ability he brings, and to see him compete really to try to get to where he's at his best, it's amazing. if you sit back. But sometimes we just, hey, let's go injury report, let's talk about him. You can get caught up in the day-to-day and fail to look back at just how much he's accomplished to get to where he is right now.
But you've not really had him.
No, not really. I mean, we've had glimpses, right? So I think that's where we're more excited than anything to get him back in the, come on, let's go. We gotta get this through this protocol, return to play. We appreciate that, understand it, but he's the same way. But, we're excited to get him back. It'd mean a lot to this team.
One of the things you said, you get emotional from where he was. You mean like maybe when he came back last year?
I'm talking about the off season.
Okay.
There he is. I mean, here he's sending videos of him going through leg workouts and change of direction drills. And look at, checking, the coach Smith. Look at the improvement. What do you see? Here's how I see it. All the little things. Just going through cone drill. To see. Now it's more watching film, and he's always been a guy like that. But just to see him compete at everything. Every level. It truly is everything counts for him.
Do you think that Gus Bradley likes his cornerbacks to be long? Do you think that he covets length in cornerbacks? Heard a lot about length today with the cornerbacks. Height, length, you want speed too, but it seems like Gus Bradley's willing to accommodate a little lack of speed in order to get length and height. It's going to be interesting Tuesday to see who's kept and who's not going to be kept. It looks like Dallas Flowers and DJ Baker are going to be the starting corners, along with Kenny Moore in the slot, and then Blackman at the strong safety, and Rodney Thomas out there at the free. We'll see how all this shakes down on Tuesday, but Gus Bradley doesn't seem to altogether, he's not nearly as worried as we are, I think is the point.